are formidable.
I've waited for this moment.
Welcome to the motherfucking lady. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. Navarrete versus Nuñez. Let's talk about the fight. We're all expecting a war when we heard that two pressure fighters from Mexico would be sharing the ring with each other, and while Nuñez looked like he was in a war, after the fight itself was far too lopsided.
That was not a war. That was a one-way beating. Too much one-way traffic.
Sugar Nuñez starts off this fight on the back foot, circling away from Emmanuel Navarrete, trying to walk him into counters, trying to set traps, but quickly finding out that being the shorter man with the shorter arms, that wasn't going to work. Nava was slapping him.
It's almost never a good idea to try to stay mid-range or outside on a taller, longer fighter because they don't need to be close to you to hit you. Being at that range, you're going to be at the very end of their punches where the most power gets generated. So Sugar Nuñez did that for a while with little to no success.
Tweaks the strategy, decides to try to come forward on Emmanuel Navarrete, make it a gunfight like we all expected it to be in. That didn't work either.
Though it worked a little better than circling away, overall it didn't work as he was outgunned.
Starts barreling forward, throwing flurries, few body shots here and there that actually got in, but it didn't take Emmanuel long to adjust to those body shots and start protecting his midsection.
Catching Nuñez in between his flurries, in between his combinations with uppercuts, with hooks.
He's making contact and badly damaging Sugar Nuñez's right eye that was fast deteriorating as the fight progressed. That Sugar made an earnest effort to pressure Emmanuel after boxing him up didn't work.
Fast finding out that pressuring him wasn't going to work either.
But he didn't go out. He didn't go down. He stayed in the fight to the best of his ability, trying to apply pressure on Emmanuel, throwing flurries and throwing combinations, very few of which actually made contact, and in the process, because he's coming forward, he's taking damage, he's taking fire. Emmanuel is an unconventional fighter.
That signature uppercut of his, that shovel uppercut, made several appearances in the fight.
Even as far as pressure fighters go, Emmanuel really isn't your run-of-the-mill pressure fighter. Timothy Bradley has said it on more than one occasion. Emmanuel, at least fundamentally, does everything wrong, but finds a way to make it work.
He made it work yesterday. There were questions as to what version of Emmanuel would show up because he seems to blow hot and cold. When he fought Charlie Suarez, he didn't look like he looked yesterday with Nuñez.
There was a question as to what version of Emmanuel would show up, and I suspected that because this would be the first unification match of his career against a fellow champion and a fellow Mexican, Emmanuel might actually be inspired for this fight, and it wasn't our imagination that he actually showed muscle definition.
He was fit.
According to Dan Canastota of CompuBox, it's hilarious that Emmanuel waited 10 plus years to finally hire a nutritionist, and then he has the best performance of his career. He's the man at 130. Yesterday's performance harkened back to the Emmanuel we used to see all the way down there at 122 when he beat the living daylights out of then-champion Isaac Dogbay. Not once, but twice.
A guy Top Rank was very much invested in at the time. Emmanuel put a stop to all of that, became WBO champion at 122, followed it up by becoming a champion at 126, at 130.
Now a unified champion at that weight. According to Jake Donovan, post-fight, Emmanuel, who's mentioned several options for his next fight, including O'Shaquie Foster, Charlie Suarez, is mandatory, and perhaps a return to the lightweight division. One big goal, though, fighting on Riyadh season, Mexico versus the World card, featuring Canelo in September.
A part of putting this fight together was getting Emmanuel's mandatory, Charlie Suarez, to stand down and step aside so that both titles could be on the line in this fight. Now that Emmanuel has both of them, he still has to settle up with that guy, and I expect to see a more inspired Emmanuel Navarrete if he does fight Charlie Suarez again.
You gotta be honest, if you've been a champion across 3 weight classes and you really haven't had a big one yet, a big fight, fighting a guy like Charlie Suarez, it's not gonna motivate you. Not the first time, but the second, now that you know who you're dealing with.
And now that he's hired a nutritionist.
I'm expecting to see a much better Emmanuel Navarrete against Charlie the second time out. Forced an 11th round TKO stoppage yesterday, doctor stoppage. I expect when he fights Charlie again, he'll probably stop him too.
It's been a while since Emmanuel looked this good, this dominant, because in his last fight, he looked lackluster with Charlie. Before that, he looked lackluster with Dennis Berenchik. He hasn't looked this good since the Oscar Valdez fight. It's been a while. Now he's back to his old form. Emmanuel Navarrete, on the Ring IQ pound-for-pound list, came in at about number 8. Not often mentioned in a pound-for-pound conversation, even though the resume and the accolades are all there. He's been a champion across 3 weight classes, having won titles from 2 reigning champions in Isaac Dogbay, now Sugar Nuñez. He made about 5 defenses of his WBO at 122, 3 defenses at 126,
5 defenses at 130, and he now stands as a unified champion there. That being said, he will advance from number 8 up to number 7, past his countryman and compatriot, Zurdo Ramirez. Now, Zurdo beat one more champion and took their belt from them than Emmanuel did, but Emmanuel's been a champion at more weights, and comparatively, Emmanuel is a more prolific champion than Zurdo. Emmanuel fights often.
he does stay busy.
In his next fight, he could be defending his 2 alphabet titles against Charlie Suarez, or if they can pull some strings and make something happen, maybe he can get O'Shaquie Foster for a unification match. I struggle to imagine anybody at 130 or anybody moving up to 130 beating Emmanuel Navarrete the way that he looked yesterday.
Yeah, there are 2 other belt holders at this weight. There's O'Shaquie and there's Jazza Dickens, but I think most people would agree Emmanuel is the best in show at 130 pounds. And if anybody with a belt finds themselves opposite the ring Emmanuel, they're gonna lose. It was a hell of a performance and a hell of a card in front of a very receptive crowd that now speaks to Eddie Hearn's plan of action that he has to compete with Zuffa boxing.
As others sue, Eddie Hearn vows to outproduce Zuffa. Glendale, Arizona. Eddie Hearns is a longtime promotional peer in the United Kingdom, Frank Warren, and the legendary fight pitchman, Don King, 94, have both filed lawsuits against the Saudi Arabians presiding over an attempted new boxing frontier.
Not dissimilar from what you saw from Top Rank and Golden Boy upon the inception of the PBC when they tried to sue them.
While Hearn has watched 2 of his former standouts, cruiserweight champion Jai Opataya and welterweight contender Conor Benn, depart from his Matchroom boxing stable for the new Saudi-backed Zuffa boxing promotion headed by Dana White, he's taking a different approach. Hearn said he wants to fight them with superior talent and quality bouts rather than seeking litigious satisfaction. You know boxing, it's the wild, wild west, a different kind of animal to just control as your own sport, as White does with the UFC and mixed martial arts, Hearn said. So they're gonna have to put up with things. You've seen Dana at his press conferences calling rival promoters, including Hearn, fucking idiot, pussy, all these things, and we're like, calm down, mate, we're just getting started. They're used to total control, and you're never going to get it in boxing unless you buy everyone out. And we're the wrong kind of characters for that. We're resilient. This is what we do. We go up against each other and battle away against the politics. They don't want to do any battling. They just want to do what they want. Ben parted with Eddie Hearn after the promoter's fierce backing of the fighter through a ped crisis in favor of a one-fight, $15 million agreement to meet veteran former champion, 140-pound Regis Pregarius in April as the co-main event to Tyson Fury versus Arslanbek Makhmudov. The compelling wrinkle in this Hearn versus White, Matchroom versus Zuffa, DAZN versus Paramount Plus rivalry is the deep involvement of Saudi Arabia's principal financier, Turkey Al Sheikh. Not only does Saudi Arabia's PIF fund own a percentage of DAZN and stage Al Sheikh's The Ring and Riyadh season fights on the streaming service, his entertainment company Sela was identified by an executive for Zuffa's parent company as entirely funding Ben's $15 million. Ultimately, these lawsuits that keep coming, that's not good for anybody, Hearn said. That's a lot of pressure on a public company, TKO. It's not a good look when they've already got class action lawsuits from the UFC, and now they've got Warren's $1 billion boxing lawsuit. It signals that Al Sheikh will experience difficulty maintaining business alliances with both sides, Hearn said, even if Al Sheikh believes he can compartmentalize his events.
What he might resemble to me and you is a kid playing on the carpet with his army men, pitting them against each other, because he is playing both sides, or at least he has been up until this point.
He has his Ring Magazine shows, he has the Saudi Riyadh season shows, TKO, Zuffa. Personally, I don't think he's gonna want to put all of his eggs in one basket, Hearn said. Or maybe he is, maybe he's trying to get everybody. Unfortunately for them, 90% of our fighters are under contract. He's kept his 3-belt super flyweight champion Jesse Bam Rodriguez from leaving for Zuffa and should have a fight announcement for him in short order, but noted he does not have 4-division champion Shakur Stevenson, whom he formerly promoted under contract. Some, like Frank Warren, see El Sheikh as tipping his hand towards where his loyalty lies, Zuffa boxing. In terms of our relationship with Turkey, people have said, oh, he's going up against you. Well, not really, Hearn said. What I like about Turkey is you know where you stand. If you have something he wants, he's going to work with you. If you don't, he's not going to. We will joke and he'll say, I'm going to get you, Eddie, and I'll say, I'm going to get you too. It's like a joke thing, but he would do that. He has no real emotional attachments. I think he quite likes me. I think he's quite funny, and vice versa, but I always know where I stand with him, so I don't get offended if he goes against me or the other way. What I get offended by is if someone is like that with you and you do so much for them, and then they fuck you.
Fuck you hard.
That is a reference to Conor Benn. Conor Benn was a bitter pill to swallow, mainly because of our relationship, Hearn said. He's a good fighter and everything, but the reality is we did a lot for him. That's what hurt. But the main thing is, if this move to Zuffa is directed at me, it's a very expensive move. He's fighting Regis Pagarius on an undercard for $15 million. What we can't do is make poor decisions for our business. That's why the Conor Benn stuff, I feel it was manufactured. Ultimately, the money's wrong. If Zuffa want to pay, congratulations. We just expect it to play it out in a different fashion. Everybody's different, but to me, you just do things in a separate way, which is, listen, if you've had my back for fucking ever, I have this offer. Hearn admitted a reunion with Ben is possible. There's a conversation to be had, he said. In the meantime, there's the focus on improving his Matchroom schedule that shifts from Lee Wood versus Josh Warrington in the UK to his US return to a vibrant market that Hearn adores in a cross-promoted fight with Bob Arum's Top Rank. Hearn has also made a strong financial offer to promote the appetizing bout pitting their in-prime, unbeaten junior middleweights Jaron Ennis versus Virgil Ortiz. Many in the industry foresee a future when the old guard of American and British promoters will need to fully turn their backs to Saudi influence and engage liberally in deep, cross-promoted cards to counter the rich investment into free agents by the Saudis and Zuffa.
Everybody knows that. There's been no meeting where everyone has come together, he said, but a good example is Navarrete from Top Rank fighting on a Matchroom show with us paying the bills. We don't care who pays the bills. We just want to make great fights, Hearn said. If we can do that, like Boots versus Ortiz, if we can get that over the line, that's the best fight in American boxing. That's what we have to keep doing. Rack them in. Another one and another one. We've just got to keep outperforming them because, let's be honest, they're not making great fights on Zuffa Boxing. The product is not very good.
Not yet.
But he's not wrong. I've seen all 3 of Zuffa's first shows, and I enjoyed them. I did. But I in no way feel those cards were competition for fights like this past weekend's fight, or the ones that Matchroom has coming up, like Callum Smith versus David Morrell. It's easy to be taken aback by all the major moves that Zuffa is making in a short span of time, but ultimately what they're selling you is boxing, and you can't lose sight of that. So whoever's putting on the better boxing matches,
That's who wins.
now, the bluster of Dana White. If you actually strip it back and look at what you're getting, if I was putting on those shows Dana is doing, I'd get ridiculed. Hearn insists a steady slate of world championship fights will hammer that point home. Opetaya's Zuffa debut on March 8th in Vegas comes against the little-known 15-ranked contender Brendan Glenton.
What would have sent a stronger message across the boxing landscape to Zuffa's competitors would have been a unification with Noel Mikhailian, and I still don't know why they didn't make that, but Hearn is right.
Don't forget that what they're selling you is boxing and boxing matches. So who's putting on the better boxing matches?
What do we have to worry about other than they're powerful people, Hearn asked. Of course they're powerful people. We're powerful people. We put on fights. We know boxing inside and out. A lot of people feel personally about this movement that they're trying to destroy boxing as we know it. Hearn nodded to the personal attendance in Glendale by New Jersey-based IBF President Daryl Peebles and Puerto Rico's WBO President Gustavo Olivieri. That contrasts with Zuffa Boxing's push for a new Ali Act that will allow the promotion to rank its own fighters and award its own belts. Opataya is expected to win the inaugural Zuffa belt on March 8th while shunning the established four sanctioning bodies. Zuffa wants the sanctioning bodies dead and finished, Hearn said. What are we gonna do about that? We're gonna come together and show them. Great boxing, no fake belts, legacy, you know what I mean? The championships. It requires a discerning attitude from the boxing fan to navigate how the opposing events are being packaged, Hearn said. It's smart what they're trying to do, trying to spin the narrative that this Zuffa belt is the belt, he said.
The belt.
How? To people who don't really know, who listen to Zuffa Boxing broadcaster Max Kellerman, the promo of Zuffa heavyweights, Charles Martin versus F.A. Ajagba, the best versus the best? The casual fan may be, okay, thinking this Zuffa belt straight out of the WWE is the belt for boxing. If you know boxing, you say, no, it's not. And it's not for me. So we've got to show the belts that have heritage.
He hit the nail on the head. Familiarity is big in boxing, and I've been saying that the whole time. We've our reservations about the alphabet organizations, the sanctioning bodies,
and how some of them are governed, but we still view them as being more legitimate than this inaugural Zuffa belt that will be on the line in Opataya versus Glenton. It's good that they're managing to put their inaugural cruiserweight title in the hands of what is already viewed as the #1 cruiserweight in the world. That might work at cruiser, but what about heavy? And all these other weight classes where Zuffa has fighters.
Depending on who ends up with the inaugural Zuffa belt at those other weights, the Zuffa belt itself may be a tough sell. Cause if you got a fighter that ends up with a Zuffa belt who outside of Zuffa's borders could not win a regular alphabet title, it's only gonna hurt their brand. It's gonna make their stable and their production seem less than. That Zuffa can put on an entertaining fighter too, but this isn't necessarily the best versus the best.
If F.A. Ajagba wins a title there, or Andy Ruiz, you're gonna say, well, how would those guys stack up against Fabio Wardley or Alexander Usyk, all the upper echelon heavyweights that are not signed to Zuffa?
See what I mean?
That's why I'm telling you, don't just be taken aback by all the major moves that Zuffa's making, like potentially inking a Sky Sports deal to do shows in the UK. That's nice. That's all well and good, but you're still trying to sell people boxing. And the quality of the boxing matches and the boxers you house matters a great deal. It's nice that you were able to poach Conor Benn from Matchroom, but to do what? To box Regis Pregarius? For $15 million?
That's expensive.
Turkey's the one putting up the money for that, not necessarily Zuffa, but you better hope he keeps doing that, because that made more news and more headlines than any fight that Zuffa has put on so far.
You've been hearing me say that at some point it's all gonna boil down to know-how. That's what I'm talking about.
Who knows how to develop fighters? Who knows how to put on a fight that captivates the boxing fans' attention? Who really knows how to promote this sport?
Aside from frivolous purchases, it's all gonna boil down to know-how.